Back in the 80s and 90s, Peugeot were the kings of the hot hatch world. Honestly, they owned it. The 205 GTI was possibly the coolest hot hatch of the time and potentially even ever. It literally ran and created the market that we see today. Then Peugeot went into a whole period of time where they made some less than interesting cars, best way of putting it. Think of the 1007 and stuff like that. A whole bunch of trash basically that no one really wanted. Today you find me in a 308 GTI, one of Peugeot's more recent hot hatchbacks, to answer the question, are Peugeot back? Today I'm on some pretty nice pointy roads where I can test the car out, although the weather isn't perfect, so I'm not going to send it too hard today, to tell you whether or not this is a proper hot hatchback. And a quick reminder, recently I reviewed the A45 AMG, the Golf R, a couple other hot hatchbacks of the likes, and I haven't really enjoyed them very much. They've kind of pushed towards the hyper hatch end of the market, and I've not found them that interesting. Yeah, all-wheel drive is great, yeah, they're quite quick, but in reality, I've just not really found, I don't know, I've not found the passion, the fun, the hot hatch mindset in those cars. This, however, is slightly different. So let's go and have some fun in it, and I can tell you more about it. Remember to hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So before we get into it, this car has a 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine. It puts about 270 brake horsepower, although this one has been decatted, and so slightly more than that. It gets to 60 in around 5.9 seconds, which is not as fast as an R. It's not as fast as an A45. It's not that fast, really. But I've always been a proponent of proper hot hatchbacks. I think hot hatchbacks don't need to be incredibly fast. They don't need to go over the top and be crazy from a 0 to 60 perspective. You don't need to win a race at Santa Pod. You need to win a race around the Nürburgring. You need to win a race on a B road. That's what hot hatchbacks are for. And as I start to increase the old speed in this, I can tell straight away. Let's try and take this corner at some kind of pace. I'm gonna like this. Straight away I'm surprised by that. I mean, watch this. That is pure hot hatch fun. It's not crazy fast by any stretch of the imagination, but it does want to shift, and I love that when I change gears I get that little burst out of the back end telling me let's go, let's do the next one, let's go again. Not as fast as a Golf R or an A45, but somehow I'm smiling a lot more already. And when it came to that one little kind of fast right-hander there, I was really confident. It felt like it gave me the confidence to send it around that corner in a way that some of the other hatches I've driven haven't really. Obviously this has come just before the return of Peugeot Sport making road cars, but it's already done the right thing in my books. I've forgotten that I've got all this plastic on the steering wheel, all this plastic around and stuff, because it is ultimately a cheaper car. I've kind of forgotten that those things exist, and instead I've just been enjoying sending it on some fast B roads basically, which is what it's supposed to be good for. But yeah, as an interior, as a place to be, I wouldn't say it's anything to really shout home about. I think you can get much nicer hatchback interiors on the market, but for me, if you're driving a hot hatch and you're worried about what the interior feels like, you're not really worried about how it performs. It sounds good too. It's in sport mode now. It's a little bit more taut, a little bit more touchy-feely with the throttle and the steering wheel. But my gosh, does it stick. I don't really need to push it too hard, and I can just feel the traction straight away on these quite wet and windy roads. This is kind of what this car was built for, doing this kind of driving. The same owner of this car is actually the guy that gave me a white Porsche Cayman S981 to drive a couple of years back. And I really enjoyed driving that car. I thought it was a great car to drive, loved to cruise around and all the rest of it. And I'm having more fun in this. For me as a driver, someone who likes cars that are proper driver's cars that you can enjoy, send and do all that kind of fun stuff with, already after only a few minutes I'm having more fun in a cheap and cheerful Peugeot that starts at like around the 8k kind of region. This one was 15k when it was bought last year. Like, it's a lot less than a Cayman S, and I'm having more fun. And I don't even mean like miles per hour fun. I mean I am having legitimately more fun. I mean, look at that. As I say, it's not crazy fast, but the way that it's handling these roads in this kind of weather is nice. And I mean, obviously the sport mode is quite aggressive. I would almost say maybe too aggressive for a day like today in particular. But I can get it moving quite easily. If I compare this to other hatchbacks that I've driven recently, so if I compare this to the A45 and to the Golf R, this is way more fun to drive. It's nowhere near as quick, obviously, but just straight up, it feels like a hot hatch should. This is the kind of experience you get out of a hot hatch that reminds you why Peugeot were known for being so good at what they did back in the 80s. If I could make one complaint about this car, it's the gear knob. So I think the gear knob is a bit too wide. I almost want something smaller because I can feel that the car wants to go fast, like in a track kind of environment, but I wouldn't want to use that gear knob for this kind of driving. I'd want something a bit smaller, a bit easier to move around. It's got good throw back and forth, etc. It's nice and tight. But I do feel like I have to really like clutch it almost. And I don't mean that clutch, I mean I'm clutching it with my hands. This is just way more fun than those all-wheel drive hot hatches that I've been driving recently. It's just a stark reminder that fast isn't the answer when it comes to hatches, especially when you're out on roads like this. Like, these are roads that you can't really go that fast on. So yeah, if you've got an A45 that gets to 60 in 3.8 seconds or something silly like that, and it holds the road nicely, yeah, it's cool, but it's not fun, right? That car will look better if you take it to, I don't know, like a car park and you show it off in front of your mates. They're going to be like, oh wow, you got a nice Merc there, very cool. But again, it's not fun. If you just want straight up fun, then just get this. I love that. It's a hooligan. It's a little hooligan on wheels. So I've just stopped for a second to have a talk about the car. I think that is just super surprising straight off the bat. I knew I was going to have a bit of fun because I always like driving a hot hatchback, and this is a fun little hot hatchback to go and drive in. But honestly, I was thinking like Peugeot have done some more cool stuff recently. This is a little bit older, being a 2018 plate, obviously it's done 6 years already. But no, genuinely, I actually found that quite a lot of fun to drive right off the bat. And what was cool about it is that I felt like I was comfortable straight away. I felt like I understood straight away how to drive this car quickly. From a looks perspective, I think it's a nice looking car. I wouldn't say it's my favorite looking hot hatchback. It's fine. Like, I think it's got some really nice looking lines and whatever. I don't think it's too shouty. It's not the kind of car that you drive around and people are going to give you loads of attention in. It does look a little bit more aggressive at the back. I quite like the little splitter there at the rear, or the diffuser, sorry, at the rear. It's not a bad looking car. I do like it. I think I love the sort of more aggressive lines along the side, etc. But it's just net a slightly uprated hot hatch Peugeot, which I think is why I found it quite surprising to drive. In terms of practicality, we've got quite a few good bits in it. For example, the boot is pretty big. I've got my camera equipment in there. That's a pretty decently sized boot. Again, great for a nice little hot hatch. It's a 5-door. I've always been more of a fan of a 3-door, but as a 5-door, you've got more space in the rear for stuff. And these seats are super nice as well to give you that kind of bolstered experience, I suppose. The material quality as well is pretty good. Like, I do quite like these, and as I said, the sport seats are super cool looking. This is maybe the one thing that I would really complain about. I was not a huge fan of this. But there is one thing that is most important about this car, and that is right there, carswithjb.com. Head over there, grab yourself one of your own. One thing I haven't spoken about actually is the brakes as well. I really should have mentioned that, but these brakes are absolutely massive. Genuinely, that brake disc in there is the size of the wheel on my MX-5. But straight away, one of the first things I noticed driving it slowly was just how aggressive the brakes were. Immediately when I was pressing the brakes, I was sort of jolting forwards because I wasn't used to them. I thought that they were going to be, in fact, I had a conversation earlier with the owner of this car saying like, you should take it on track, do a couple of track days. All you need to do is maybe work on the brakes and the tires. But actually, it's just the tires. Those brakes are very decent. As long as the pads are right in them, life's good. So I think less of my chat, let's get back in the car, take it for a final drive, and I can give you my final thoughts. So back in the car then, I've just been drenched by the lovely British summer that we're having right now. As I said at the start of the video, are Peugeot back? I would say yes, they are. But I mean, again, it's somewhere in the middle. This car is decent looking. I wouldn't say it's incredibly good looking. I don't think that the looks of this car will go down in history in the same way as like a 205 GTI. Maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, it's current day, so it's hard to predict these things. But I think the 205 GTI made such a huge impact on the market from a hot hatch perspective that this just never will do, right? It just simply won't do the same thing. But in terms of out and out driver experience and the smiles and the enjoyment, I've been having a great time driving this, and hopefully that's come through on video, because as I say, I've driven some other fast hatchbacks recently and they haven't given me the smiles that I want out of a car like this, despite being quicker, more interesting, and better equipped from a performance perspective. All in, I think that comes from two main things. This car has a better kind of power to weight than those cars in most cases, or if it doesn't, it's putting the power down in a way that is more fun. It's got more turbo lag than those cars. It's just a little bit more enjoyable at every sense of the word, every part of the driving experience. Every time I throttle it, I turn a corner, I do a thing, it feels like I'm doing a thing, right? And the car, straight away after getting into it, felt like I knew what fast looked like. I felt like I could drive it quickly. When I got into the A45, when I got into the Golf R, even when I get into cars like the Caymans and stuff like that, quick is so far in the distance in terms of road driving. Quick is over there somewhere, and it's like you're just never going to find it on the roads without losing your license. In a car like this, yes, it's still quite fast, but I can find fast so quickly, and I think that's a real testament to the kind of experience that these cars give you. So all in, what are my thoughts on the 308 GTI? Cheap and cheerful from a buying and a driving and a experience perspective from that point of view, but it's a proper hot hatch, and that is what I personally would be after if I was buying any car like this. It needs to feel and drive like a proper hot hatch. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. Let me know in the comments down below if you've driven one of these or any other hot hatchbacks that are similar, what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts around hot hatchbacks? I'd love to hear them. Massive thanks to the owner of this car for letting me drive it. Massive thanks to you guys for watching as the pays for their support. And if you want to see another video on one of the hot hatches that I've driven recently, click on screen right now.